Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Or...
Hi.
This video is for Sikhs and for non-Sikhs, anybody.
Or at least bi Sikhs and non-Sikhs.
Bi and
for.
Which leads to the question, why are you in this video?
Right, so, yeah, I mean, I think it's, I guess just coming at it from a perspective of maybe just a little bit of my own insecurity about, participating in these discussions and so forth. I think, well, I'm an atheist. So many people might say, well, what business do you have commenting on any of this? Or why would you take a position on this? Or if you're an atheist, how can you even have an opinion about a religious subject? The way that I see it is, I see myself as a Sikh ally. I'm not Sikh. I support Sikhs and their right to believe what they believe and to be who they are. And I believe it's important to respect cultures and respect people's choices. So to me, it's similar to, if somebody saw someone else, if you see some neo-Nazis or something, doing some racist thing to somebody who's not of your own ethnicity, you don't just say, well, I'm not the victim, so I don't care. Instead, you would say, that's ethically unacceptable. I'm going to act to stop that. So I see myself as an ally of the people that I think are being victimized in this case, which I think is, for the discussions at hand, it's Sikhs. That's the dog I have in this hunt.
So you mentioned you said a phrase like, that's my choice, so I don't care. So a lot of people would argue, and I've heard the argument so many times, well, if somebody wants to be part of 3HO, if they want to practice this non-Sikh religion, which uses things from Sikhi, that's their choice. Why would you fight against that? What's the problem?
Right.
It's a free country, man. Anybody can do what they want.
Right.
What's wrong with that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my opinion, you've already addressed some of that in one of your other videos, obviously, about why you personally feel that it's important to fight this. But from my perspective, it's important to first understand that this isn't, I don't think this is a war of good versus evil.
No, me neither.
Right, and I think that sometimes it gets misunderstood. That people think that what we're trying to say is that 3HO are evil. The people of 3HO are evil.
I'm not saying that.
Right. I mean, good people can do bad things. And I think most people, no one sees themselves as the bad guy.
Right.
Right? And no one, well, generally, people don't wake up in the morning aiming to do bad things.
Right.
And so, what it really is it's an ignorance problem, partly.
Self-denial.
Largely. Yeah. So to me, I think about the history of the United States and its relationship with particularly, black people, African Americans, really just about any minority when you get down to it, but specifically the relationship of white people to black people in the United States and its history. So before the 1960 civil rights movement, there was obviously a huge amount of open racism perpetrated by white people against black people. I mean, housing was segregated, water fountains were segregated. I mean, segregation was open, and, racism was just a public norm.
Right.
So most of us today, I think, can all agree that was a bad thing. That was an evil thing to do.
Right.
But it would be foolish to imagine that every American who thought that was an evil person.
Right.
Right? I mean, so it's well, good people, normal people, can do evil things without even realizing it and without even having the framing, the cultural framing to imagine that they could be wrong. So why fight against 3HO? Well, because in this case, I think what you have is people doing something out of ignorance that they don't think is bad, that they don't understand how it could be perceived as bad,
Well, they don't realize that they're ignorant.
Right.
That's part of ignorance.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But it's a choice, and it's willful ignorance.
Right.
And the root word of ignorance is ignore.
Mm.
Like, you could have all of this information in front of your face, and you're going to ignore it. That's ignorance.
Honestly, it's kind of common sense. Ignorance leads to bad results. Right?
Yeah.
So it's important to, I think that it's important for people to understand what it even means when you say you're fighting against 3HO. Like, you're not going out and trying to, like, literally attack those physical people, like go and punch them and stuff. I do think sometimes some of them kind of ask for such things, but that's not what you're really trying to do.
Right.
You're trying to put the knowledge out there so that their way of doing things will no longer be considered to be okay.
Right. Yes.
That's the fight. It's not a fight against people. It's a fight against ignorance. And honestly, anybody who's hearing this, if you don't think you should be fighting against ignorance, you need to take a look at yourself.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and you mentioned racism in this topic, and a lot of people, like you said, wouldn't consider themselves racist. And racism, speaking of race...
Yeah, there's a race.
Racism can take so many different forms, and if you don't know, I studied for my master's degree in border and migration literature, and a huge part of that was discussing marginalized communities and fetishizing the other. And a lot of people have argued that they're not appropriating these cultures, they're appreciating them. And there's a huge difference. There can be two different cultures that are exchanging ideas and traditions equally, and that's fine, that's a good thing. But when there's a power dynamic in play, and one culture has a greater power historically over another, then that's not an equal exchange.
Right.
Because then it becomes, this culture is taking from a minority culture whatever they want and turning it into whatever they want without the permission of the minority culture.
Right.
And a minority culture doesn't mean a weak culture. That's not what it means at all. It just might mean that there aren't that great of numbers of those people to be able to fight, and maybe they don't have the same resources, although they are just as strong. But when there is that power dynamic, it becomes appropriation.
Yeah.
And that's what's happening with 3HO and Sikh. Like, regardless of Yogi Bhajan and what he did and who he raped and all, like, those things almost don't matter right now, because 3HO and their followers are still going to continue the appropriation of Sikh culture. They're going to continue spreading lies, and they're going to continue using the names Kaur and Singh and dressing like Sikhs and presenting themselves as Sikhs, even though they're completely disrespecting and disregarding the rich history and the culture of Sikhs. Because they have the money and the power to do so.
Right. And so, like, that exact dynamic that you're talking about, the power dynamic, because that's the thing that I think gets missed so often, is that really is what defines the difference. It's such a subtle thing. Right? Because it's absurd to think that cultures can't trade things, that they can't trade cultural elements.
Right, we're taiko players.
Right.
Look at his shirt.
Yeah,
it's in Japanese.
Right. But, doing that with respect and participating in something that's been shared openly, participating in something where you're respecting its origin, you're taking the time to understand its origin, you're seeing it as an element of the world in which you exist, not... That's a nice thing that I like, and because I'm powerful, I'm going to take that thing.
I'm going to have that.
And I was, it occurred to me that there's such an analogy. There's a perception problem partly because I know that it seems like many Punjabi Sikhs particularly, they love to see, Americans and white people and stuff like converting and starting to espouse being Sikh. You know, it's like a pride thing, right? And that makes perfect sense, because it's like, so there's some good and bad in there, right? Because I understand the notion of pride, but also I think that unfortunately there's a lot of looking at Western culture with a certain kind of desire, a certain kind of coveting. And when you link that in with, and then those people are claiming to be converting to your religion, I can imagine that would feel like a source of serious pride, because it's like, oh, yeah, we're getting there, we're getting that going.
Yeah.
See, here's the thing. When white people are, these white people, not all white people, but the 3HO white people, okay, in this case, and actually some of them are not white, because in Brazil it's the same thing.
Right, South America.
But I mean, you can't deny though that 3HO was created in America, and it was predominantly created utilizing white people.
Yes.
This is.
Yeah, that was one of Yogi Bhajan's things.
Right, and so there's this whole the whole Gora Sikh thing, right?
Yeah.
Right. So these are not people who are participating in your culture. These are people who are taking something. And I was thinking about how it's so much like, I thought about the Koh-i-noor diamond.
Oh, yeah.
And how England took it from Amritsar to London because they liked it, they wanted it. So they took it from India. They wanted to make it the way they wanted it to look, so they cut it to look the way they wanted it to, and they stuck it in their crown, and they said, it's ours.
Right.
Look, I've taken your thing that I wanted, and then, because I'm powerful, I'm going to take it.
And I reshaped it.
I'm going to reshape it into the form that I envision, and I'm going to put it in my crown. And that is exactly what 3HO is doing to Sikhi. They are coming, they're taking it, they're cutting it into their shape, they're putting the khanda in their little crown that they perceive to be
their giant white turban.
Yeah. And they're not doing it because of respect for Punjab. They're not doing it for respect of the history and the culture. They're doing it for the exact same damn reason that the English took the Koh-i-noor diamond.
That looks nice.
They wanted it.
That looks good.
Right. And then they cut it. Why would you... So look at what they do with Sikhi, right? They don't look to the source. They don't care about the source. They put all their
care
things.
Less.
Right.
I'm pretty sure that most 3HO probably couldn't even point out Punjab on a map.
That's probably right.
They probably couldn't name the 10 gurus. They don't care.
Right.
From my experience talking with them, they don't want to learn those things because in their minds, that has nothing to do with their practice.
Right.
And if that's their personal practice, they want to do Kundalini yoga and take bits and pieces from different religions.
Fine, don't call yourself Sikh.
That's fine. Also, don't call yourself Sikh, but also don't teach those things that you've taken, misinterpreted, and then teach those things to other people.
Right.
As Sikhi.
Yeah. That's actually one of the dangerous things that I wish people would understand. Cults are dangerous. They grow.
Yeah.
They're not just chilling. These are not just, they're not just chilling and doing their thing. These are people who are actively proselytizing these lies.
Right. And that's another point is that in Sikhism, we don't proselytize. Proselytize means to go out with the intention of spreading your religion to other people. So 3HO does go out with the intention of spreading their message to others. So they're going out there and they're spreading like a virus. Whereas Sikhi is just like, if you're Sikh, then you live as a Sikh and that's good enough for you. If somebody asks you questions, then you'll answer them, but it's not part of the religion to go out and spread the religion.
All right. It's so funny because I think that the 3HO people do that because overwhelmingly they come from Christian cultures.
Right.
And of course, Christianity has a very strong proselytizing component.
Right.
And so I think that many, at least Americans, probably South Americans as well, because it's heavily Christian and Catholic there.
Right.
They adopt a religion and they're like, well, obviously the thing I'm supposed to do is proselytize.
Right, I gotta go spread this.
Right.
Like forcefully.
Right.
Yeah, and angrily, like I have to make other people become this religion.
Right. So some people would say, well, okay, well, what difference does it make? It's basically Sikh-y. It's close enough, maybe they would say. I mean, that's the thing. It's not close. I mean, it's really not, because...
No, it's not.
Right, because fundamentally, a belief framework is about an understanding of how the universe works, what God is, and how the universe works.
Right.
And listen, if you don't know, 3HO thinks that you can control the way the universe works through what are essentially magic spells. They don't call them that. But they say if you do this pose and you do this chant, then this thing will happen. That is a magic spell. They don't see it that way for reasons that aren't clear to me. Maybe just because they know that would be stupid. But it is fundamentally, their view is not one of finding God. It's about controlling God.
Yeah.
And the stuff that gets said in so many of these Kundalini things is they're like, oh, if you open your spine, the Kundalini energy you can get, and the energy of Guru Ram Das will come through your spine and go up into... I'm like, what are you talking about?
And then you'll get prosperity.
Right. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they call them Kriya for prosperity, Kriya for sexual, potency, Kriya for success in business.
What is that if not a magic spell?
That's literally what that is.
Right.
But if you practice magic, that's fine too.
Yeah, but Sikhi says...
But don't practice magic spells and call it Sikhi, because that's the opposite.
Well, and isn't superstition supposed to be sort of like specifically recommended against by Sikhi?
Yeah.
Okay, well, so, I mean, if you're saying, well, if I say this chant and move this way or whatever, right, then this will happen. That is nothing if not superstition.
Yeah, exactly. That's what 3HO is.
Right.
That's what it's founded on.
Fundamentally. So you might say, okay, well then why don't they know that? But they don't know because they don't look. They don't care. They aren't interested in learning these things. Yogi Bhajan did not tell them that, and if he didn't tell them that, they don't care.
Right.
That's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. He is their be-all, end-all of sources.
So then let's get into another piece, this Yogi Bhajan piece of things, right?
Yeah.
So you've got the 3HO entity, which of course Yogi Bhajan created.
Right.
And it has all of this nonsense.
Occult security.
Well, I don't mean that. I'm talking about the belief elements that he contributed.
The other nonsense.
Right.
Right.
And with Premka's book and the revelations about his sexual misconduct, suddenly everybody is turning against him as a result of that. Now, while it's great to see people turning against a cult leader for vile actions, that's always a nice thing to see.
Yes.
It's really frustrating for me as an outsider also looking in to see that that's the thing that's making people turn away. They're not looking and saying these beliefs made no sense, or this was a racist thing, or this was not respectful of Punjabi culture, or I was ignorant, or any of that. They're just saying, oh, now I don't like Yogi Bhajan. He was a bad person, so now I'm going to dump the rest of these things, or I don't actually know where people are coming out on it, but they're saying, they're turning against Yogi Bhajan and saying that their worldview is shattered. I'm like, so if your worldview was shattered because of one man, why is it not clear that you're in a cult? Right?
Right.
I mean,
yes.
What do you think is going on there if your entire perspective of a religion is about one living or recently deceased
Thank God.
man?
Right.
There's so many things to get into there with what's upsetting about that. First of all, I think that at a certain level, they didn't think he was human.
Some of them don't think he was human. Some of them collected his toenail and fingernail clippings.
Maybe they could grind them up, put them in a pouch, hang them on their neck.
He had them in a pouch, and he was like,
God.
I don't know. I think yeah, Gursant Singh has a video about that.
So, so that's problematic for so many reasons.
Right, I think it's the leader of SeekNet who actually did that.
Really? That dude?
Yeah, that old man.
The psychic powers man?
Man.
Yeah, psychic turban blockage man.
Yeah. He collected the nail clippings of Yogi Bhajan. So
Good
stupid.
God. It's frustrating to see that in walking away from Yogi Bhajan and turning away from Yogi Bhajan the man, that people aren't able to connect the dots to the next clear assumption, which is, and therefore the things he taught me and that I've come to believe are probably also inaccurate.
Right.
But instead they're trying to be, I'm going to continue doing Kundalini Yoga because it's ancient. But I'm not going to talk about Yogi Bhajan anymore. I'm like, but the only person the inventor of Kundalini Yoga was Yogi Bhajan.
Right. Who said it was ancient.
Right.
He's the source of that information.
If he lied about this, surely you can see he probably also lied about that, right?
Right, yeah. One small example is they've completely turned away from Yogi Bhajan, and then they still go around saying Satnam.
Oh my God, that thing.
Why would you say that? First of all, you don't even know what it means. He gave a completely inaccurate description of the meaning of Satnam.
Yeah, the whole Satnam thing is...
It's ridiculous. It's offensive.
I mean, honestly, we could have a whole video just talking about the problems of Satnam, saying Satnam as a greeting, and telling people it's that. But because fundamentally, we've talked about this before, you and I, but so many of the things that 3HO got from Yogi Bhajan, he clearly was putting in as ways of separating 3HO members from actual Sikhs without them knowing it.
Yes.
Wear white. Always wear white. Say Satnam to each other as a greeting. That's a classic cult thing. It's like a secret handshake.
Change your name.
Right.
Right.
Even with the name thing, the whole thing of putting Khalsa at the end.
Right, that's another huge thing. Sikhs don't have the last name Khalsa. But 3HO, many of them take the last name Khalsa. Because Yogi Bhajan promoted that.
And for some reason, it hasn't occurred to them that they've never seen any other Sikh with that except for 3HO members. I don't know.
Right.
It's crazy. It's like hysterical blindness. Like they just can't see the things. It's like you said, ignorance. It's about ignoring what's right in front of you.
Yeah, and Sikh-born Sikhs don't say Satnam as a greeting, as a farewell, as a prayer, as by itself, anything. They don't say Satnam in isolation.
Yeah,
but
look.
Bhajanists do.
If you're a person who's watching this and you say Satnam as a greeting and you think that that's a Sikh greeting, you should honestly, you should stop right away. You should stop. You should never say that to somebody else again.
Please.
If you're saying that, you need to understand that what you're really doing is the equivalent of the Christian little fish drawing, okay? You are signaling, I'm a 3HO member. You're not saying I'm Sikh. You're saying I'm 3HO. And I've seen it happen. Where somebody's trying to greet a Sikh, not understanding that they don't say Satnam, and said Satnam, 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 and they just ignored it because they didn't know what was they didn't understand that this was a greeting.
They were like, why is that person saying a sentence fragment from scripture to me?
Right. It's not a Sikh greeting. I think it's very short, it's very snappy, and I think for Americans it probably
American.
Yeah, it had a great appeal because it's 2 syllables and you can write it easily, But it's not real. That's not a greeting.
No.
If you're saying it, stop saying it. It's not real. The only person who ever said that was real is Yogi Bhajan.
Yeah.
Look and find out. You'll see.
Yeah.
Anyway, a little bit of a tangent there, I guess. But that one drives me crazy. It's such an easy one.
It's a pet peeve of mine too.
that one kills me because with just the most cursory investigation, they would find that that's not real.
I know.
It would,
yeah.
honestly, like if they went to Punjab once ever,
which
and
a lot of people can't do,
and that's fine. But they can certainly ask people who are from Punjab or.
That's another problem too. They don't. There's not an open communication.
Well, right.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
I
don't know why.
Well, I mean, there's probably language barrier. I mean, very few Americans speak Punjabi, and a lot of Punjabis, I think, don't know what is happening here. I don't think they know the details of this, so they don't know to talk about it with Americans. So it's like, I mean, you're one of the people that's providing the sort of crossover of that information between the two communities, if you will.
Hopefully.
But, man, it's really frustrating to see people walk away from Yogi Bhajan and somehow not think that they should also walk away from everything else he made up. It makes no sense.
I completely agree, and I don't understand.
I mean, look, if people want to do yoga, they should do it. If they want to, do crystals and think about, doing poses and stuff and think that it's going to give them prosperity and all that stuff, fine, whatever. Look, I've seen, you go to a New Age shop, people have all kinds of beliefs. All kinds.
Yes, I agree completely, and I don't have any problem with that. Maybe some people are thinking oh, she doesn't understand, she's not open-minded, but I'll tell you right now that I actually really love studying magic. I have a degree in magic from Fantasia Crystals, which is a New Age shop here in Phoenix. I love that. I love the people there. I love taking their classes, and I've done plenty of magic spells in my life, so I'm not against that whatsoever. But I wouldn't take a magic spell or create something like that and then go out and tell other people that that's Sikh.
Right.
I'm not going to intentionally deceive people.
And
that's the difference.
I would go so far as to say that Sikh, from what I understand, is sort of against even believing in that stuff to a certain level. I mean, people can believe what they want, but at the end of the day, I think that's a very important thing that people haven't gotten about your messaging to people, is you're not saying don't do Kundalini yoga, although I think you shouldn't because Yogi Bhajan made it up. But leaving that aside,
some parts of it are okay.
I don't care. What I'm saying is I don't care whether it is or not. If somebody wants to do it, that's not the argument. None of this has to do with should you do Kundalini yoga. None of this has to do with should you believe in chakras and stuff. It has nothing to do with that.
Right.
This has to do with the fact that Sikh has nothing to do with that stuff.
Exactly.
And that's just it.
And
stop saying it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, stop saying that. They're not the same.
They don't have to stop believing it. And somebody can be Sikh and think those things too, but don't think that they are the thing.
Right.
That's the big difference.
Right. So, are there any final closing remarks or thoughts that you feel?
Geez, I mean, I'm sure there'll be others, but just for right now, one thing that I would just leave out there that I hope that, Americans will understand what I'm getting at with this. But if you can understand the notion that a kid taking a Native American chief's headdress and wearing that because he thinks it looks neato, he's wearing that and going to a music festival because he thinks it looks cool and makes him look tough or something, or just is interesting or something. But a native sees that and is hurt by it and is offended by it. If you can understand that, just take that and apply that here. It's the same. It's the same thing. It's somebody taking something because they feel like they can. They feel like they can do what they want, and that no one can stop them, and that if they find the shiny jewel and it amuses them, that they have the right to take it.
Right.
It's exactly like that. Instead of a native headdress, what they're taking is a belief system, or the name of a belief system, the trappings, let's say, the trappings of a belief system. They're taking the turbans, they're taking the khanda, they're taking the guru itself, they're taking, the names, they're taking
the scriptures.
The scriptures. They're taking so many elements, not from a perspective of understanding and respect, because if they had understanding and respect, they would see what they were doing wasn't right.
Yeah.
They're taking them because they just want them.
It makes them happy.
Yeah.
It helps them heal from their past traumas.
Oh God, this whole thing of help me recover from drugs and stuff. If I hear that one again,
maybe let's do another video on that different topic. But an argument that I've heard against what you just said is, well, nobody owns anything, and I should be able to do what I want. And I'm like, that's true, but I've said before, just because you can doesn't mean you should.
Yeah.
Like, you can, but you shouldn't. That's disrespectful.
I mean, if you hurt someone...
Oh, you can, yeah.
Yeah, if you hurt someone, but you're like, well, I can do it anyway, you can choose to do that. That's what evil is.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of my point about the whole racism thing from before. Just because you are in a position to be able to do a thing doesn't mean it's a good thing. And just because you don't understand that it's evil doesn't make it not evil. If you're hurting someone emotionally, culturally, that's an evil thing to do.
Yeah, and 3HO is doing that.
They're doing that. And if someone tells you you're doing an evil thing, and you think that you don't need to find out if that's actually true, you might be the bad guy. Sorry. That's how it is.
Truth. #truth.
Hashtag real talk.
#?
Hashtag.
#.
It's a hashtag.
Whatever.
#.
Okay. Well, thank you for sitting with us this evening and listening to these arguments. I hope you like my videos. I hope they're helpful, and I continue to make more and more. If you have any suggestions for topics, I'm happy to hear those, so leave those in the comments. And if you have any criticisms, then leave those in the comments too, because I can edit those and delete them. So if you have any criticisms, you're not going to get heard. No. Just kidding. Please let me know what you think. And Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.
Stay safe out there.